Right, so the strategy itself. I'm going to talk about 3 different things, and I'll explain a bit about what I mean by those. So the strategy outcome is, what change do we want the strategy to make? What do we want at the end of this? The priorities that I'll go on to talk about are essentially what are the areas we need to focus on in order to bring about that change, to bring about the outcome. And the actions are the doing bits, so what actually will we do to bring about the overall change. The strategy outcome is really quite simple. It goes back to this sense of the well-being gap and trying to narrow that gap, in that it's simply saying that people living with disability in Jersey enjoy a good quality of life. That's ultimately what we think the strategy should achieve. The priorities, I will go on into more detail shortly, but the important thing to say is that with all of these priorities, the intention is for it and them to improve the lives of disabled islanders. But by doing that, a lot of the work will actually improve everybody's lives and make things better in general in the island. Again, a simple example of that is in terms of physical access, and access in terms of shops, for example, will help people in wheelchairs, but it will also help people pushing buggies. That's it in its most basic terms. So the priorities, we have 5 of them. The first one is have support to communicate and access information. The second one is have greater access to the island. The third one is to have good health and well-being. The fourth is about access to education, employment and enriching activities. And the 5th is about having equal rights and experiencing greater equality. So, looking at the first priority, it's no accident that this is the first priority. When we undertook the research, this came up time and time again as the first barrier that many people face, that actually if you can't communicate or you can't find out the information you need, you can't get further than that. That's why we put it first and foremost. And if you can't do that, it amplifies other inequalities. So, for example, if you can't find out if a restaurant has an accessible toilet, well, then you're probably not going to go there in the first place. So it's the first stop. This priority is about availability of information and the way that it's presented. So it's about making sure information's in accessible formats, and it's about making information easy to find, which again is an issue that affects disabled people on the island, but it actually affects all islanders, because Jersey isn't that good at giving information in easy to find ways.
Awful.
Yes. and a lot of it also depends on, it's almost an old-fashioned stance, so if you know the right person and you happen to hear the right thing from the right person, you can get the right information, but if you're not looped in like that, then you miss out on things. As I touched on before, it's about knowing things in advance. That forewarned is forearmed, so actually if you know something in advance, it helps a lot, so that's what the information needs to be able to do. It's about being able to specify your communication preferences, so if you prefer or you can only communicate in a certain way, it's about being able to let, for example, government know that, so that they communicate with you in a way that is suitable. And it's also about services and organisations understanding how best to communicate with you. It's a two-way thing. So what I put up on the screen here is some of the quotes that were revealed in the research. Again, sort of touch on the different areas of this first priority. So one of them is from a male with hearing impairment, who said, "I get so many letters saying, to book an appointment, ring this number, but I can't use the phone and they don't offer any alternative to get in touch." So again, that's about specifying communication preferences, which should be a simple thing, but time and time again, it's something that doesn't happen. Then there was another quote from an elderly lady with mobility issues, saying that her granddaughter bought her an iPad for Christmas and taught her how to use it, and now she can use Skype and has seen her great-grandson for the first time. So it's about this is about technology and actually how technology can unlock things and make a difference to people's lives.
Can you give me the granddaughter's address, please?
Unfortunately, I think she lives in Australia. That was the problem. That was the problem. And the final one is from someone who uses BSL as their first language, which is a kind of bit of a shocking one in a way, who talks about being in hospital and giving birth, but not being able to communicate with the midwives. There being complications,
That's
and actually,
not over here, is it?
And actually, it is over here.
Yeah, okay.
And actually, the social worker having to come in and act as an interpreter because there wasn't the communication support that she needed. Okay, so just breaking down. So with each of those priorities, what I'll do is just. I haven't put all of the actions we're proposing in the consultation onto these slides because we'll be here for more hours than we've got. So I've just put down some of the key ones and broken those into different areas. So the first one is about exchanging information, about making sure the information is available, about signposting people towards the information, and supporting people to communicate in the way they want to. One of the proposed actions is about reviewing the availability of information around financial support. That's something that's come up particularly in light of the introduction of long-term care benefits. And actually it's this case of particularly when there is a change in terms of what's available, that people want to know that in advance and they want it to be clear, especially around areas that are very, very complex. So what's the best way of doing that? So what we want to do is actually look and say, right, what information is out there and what do we need to change? Another one I touched on earlier, we're proposing to work with Visit Jersey to talk about online information in terms of the accessibility of lots of different venues, tourism and hospitality venues. And some places do that very well already and others don't. And again, it's that, forewarned is forearmed. If you know you're not going to go to a restaurant, if you don't know if you can even use the toilet or you don't know you can actually be heard because of the acoustics of the place. But if you could find that out in advance, it would open a lot of things up to you.
Can I just mention something on that? Because
Sure.
I've been to Visit Jersey, I've been to Tourism Jersey over the years on a number of occasions because I used to work associated with the hospitality industry. And I've asked them to do what they do in the UK, where they have hotels and venues, restaurants and so on, to indicate that one, they've got accessible facilities for disabled people by putting the sign up in the windows. Also on adverts for the hotels to put a sign on saying disability people welcome. Now, every time I've done it, they've said, yes, what a good idea, nothing happens. And when I go back to say, well, why haven't you done something about it? They say, well, when there's legislation, we'll think about it.
No.
Because for some reason or other, people get frightened of putting the fact that they are disabled friendly, even to the extent that we've got toilets.
Yeah.
And they don't, for some reason or other, they feel it's secondary to normal people, or upsetting normal people, if there's a disabled access, for example. Why?
And that's a really interesting point. I think that touches on two things. I think, first of all, this is why we need a strategy to make sure those good suggestions and things that need to change actually do change. But also, it feeds into the last priority about equality and lack of discrimination. And actually, a big part of this strategy is about opening up the eyes of islanders and changing the way we talk about disability and we look at disability, and it's not this thing over there, it's just part of the community, and there's no reason why venues shouldn't advertise proudly.
Yeah, but I've actually had a situation where a very well-known restaurant has actually refused me access to the restaurant because they don't have a disabled toilet. And when I said I don't want to use the toilet, I want to use the restaurant, we won't allow you in.
Goodness me.
Yeah. Well, and then again, that's something that can be worked on in terms of cultural and attitudinal change, but essentially the reason we do need legislation as well is this backstop, like I say, that so people won't be able to make those decisions. It's similarly, we've had issues, people wanting to bring assistance dogs into venues and being denied because actually it's not against the law to refuse those people entry as it stands, whereas it should be.
Another one, I've had restaurants say we can't let you in a wheelchair because the fire regulations don't allow us to.
Yeah, and again it's that sort of misunderstanding and that, if that's the case it shouldn't be, but actually that may well not be the case and it's people just not not understand.
Well, if you go to the fire service station and you ask them, they'll say, well, we shouldn't allow you really into the opera house, for example, because we can't get you out. Now, there's a miscommunication going on here, and I've tried both ways and many times to do this. And for some reason or other, there's a miscommunication between different people as to what can and cannot be done in a practical sense.
One part of the strategy that we're proposing is introducing a specific to the government disability officer, and part of their role would be to iron out these kind of issues and actually be the kind of voice of authority who can liaise both with government departments but also private organisations and say, look, this is how it is and this is how it should be.
Yeah, well, the only comments I would give there is don't ask them to educate, because I know that's the buzzword of the year. They have to be able to legislate.
Yeah.
So they must tell people they have to do it, not say, would you like to? Because if you ask people, would you like to, they don't.
And like I said, that's that jigsaw of strategy and legislation is that you need those two side by side so that you can ask people, and if the answer's no, then you can use your stick to make sure things happen.
Yeah, but the stick has to be there.
Yeah, and that's
Can I ask
like I said,
how far away are we from having a disability officer? Because we've actually been trying for what, 4 years now?
Oh, 20 years.
It's something.
20 years.
It's something that we want to happen, and we are still working on. My advice to you would be to make that clear in any response to consultations. Obviously, I'll take that away from this meeting, but if you are responding to the survey or responding separately, be vociferous about that, and that will hopefully make things happen more quickly.
Well, you can ask politicians like Paul Ritchie, Andrew Green and various others over the years, since you've been able to be sort of specific, and you can say, look, you're effectively the disabled officer because you're the politician in charge. Can you do something about it? And they said, well, we'll go away and try, but again, nothing happens again. So, you know, you've got to make sure these people have got teeth.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Agreed. Okay, well, I have made a strong note about that.